Deep Rock Galactic has a lot of different challenges that you can do, and it has many different ways that you can play, from very casually to very seriously. And while there are many different difficulties, there's one that people seem to covet very much, and that is reaching the ever so tantalizing hazard level 5s. If you're a relatively newish player to Deep Rock Galactic, chances are you have been trying to get to hazard 5 for a little while now. Now, hazard 5 is by no means the hardest difficulty you can achieve, but it's probably the one that you are striving for the most. It's almost like a badge of honor to be able to say that you can clear Haz 5 regularly. However, some newer players have a struggle to get there. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I am going to give you 5 tips to help you survive better on Haz 5 in Deep Rock Galactic and help you get those clears under your belt to prepare you for even further challenges later on down the line. Now, Hazard 5 in Deep Rock Galactic is not just a bump in difficulty, it's a full-on survival test in some cases. The bugs are meaner, the swarms are bigger, and mistakes are a lot more punishing. Now granted, yes, I know that there are difficulties far beyond Hazard level 5, there's Haz 5 Plus, and if you play on modded games, you can do things like Hazard level 6, 7, 8, and it just goes on from there. However, if you're a vanilla player or you're just somebody who doesn't like to mod a whole lot, chances are Haz 5 is going to be one of the highest levels of challenge that you can achieve. So without further ado, here are 5 essential tips that will help you survive and potentially even carry your team in Haz 5 on Deep Rock Galactic. So the first tip I have for you is to use all of your pieces of equipment. Now, chances are up to this point, if you're playing on the lower difficulties, you're probably just using 1 or 2 of your weapons and probably forgetting that you have some other pieces of equipment unless you are somebody who is really good at making sure you utilize all of them. And let's be real, if you're only using your primary weapon on Haz 5, chances are you're going to have a pretty rough time. Every class comes with a full kit of tools. Between 2 weapons, a throwable grenade, an equipment, and a traversal tool, you really need to make sure you're utilizing all of them in order to make the most out of Haz 5. For the driller, you want to make sure that you're using your charges and your drills to make bunkers or clear out large groups of enemies whenever your normal weapons can't handle it. If you're the scout, you want to make sure you are putting up flares constantly, that way your teammates know what's going on, as well as using especially your very debilitating grenades such as the pheromone grenade, the cryo grenade, to make sure that these swarms come to a complete stop. The gunner, you want to make sure you are constantly using your shield in tight situations, that way your team can survive, and finding opportunistic locations to put down zip lines. An engineer should have platforms littered all over the caves and should have his sentry gun up at all times. This is very important, especially since, again, as I said before, a lot of people tend to only really stick with 1 or 2 of their weapons on the lower difficulties, since that's really all you kind of need on those lower difficulties. But the bottom line is, if you're sitting on your weapons and you're not really using anything, there's not really a point for you to have brought them in the first place, so make sure you utilize your entire kit to their full effectiveness. The next tip I have for you is to make sure you're subscribed to this channel. That way you never miss another upload. Nah, I'm just kidding. On to the actual next tip. The next tip I have for Haz 5 survival is mobility is critical. In Hazard level 5, staying still is practically a death sentence. Mobility isn't just a luxury, it's how you kind of survive. Once things really start going on Haz 5, they don't really stop. The enemies don't stop, hordes are going to be pretty much constant. And since the enemies are going to be tougher and stronger, you're not really going to want to stay in one place for too long unless, of course, it's an objective for the mission. You always want to make sure you have an escape route wherever you are and make sure that you know where you are in relation to both your teammates, the swarms, and the objectives. That way you know where to go in case you get cornered. This is why Dash is especially a very useful perk at this difficulty, because it allows you to get out very quickly if you're in a tight situation. And also understand each class's way that they can avoid damage using their particular traversal tools. The scout can obviously zip away with his grappling hook whenever he needs to. If the gunner has a good position with his zip line, he can kind of set up his position where he's kind of just floating in the air and most of the enemies can't hit him. The driller can, of course, just drill away or make a bunker. That way the enemies have a harder time getting to him. And the engineer, if he has the repellent additive on his platform gun, he can set up a station where the bugs essentially can't get to him. Essentially, just stay moving and you will stay alive. Tip number 3 I have for you is to communicate everything. Communication is not optional in Haz 5, it is essential. You want to make sure that your teammates know everything that is going on at any given point in time. If you're playing with friends and you're on comms, it's very easy. You can just talk to them. And if you're playing with randoms, you want to make sure you use the ping system as effectively as possible. Use your scanning tool and mark essentially anything. Enemies like oppressors, wardens, menaces, anything that is of a threat. Objectives like where the hacking stations are, where the dreadnought might be. Anything that is of importance or information that is needed by the team, let them know what is going on. Use the text chat to confirm when people are ready for stuff or to ask questions if you are not sure where a particular thing is. Just make sure that the team is aware and on the same page no matter what it is. ping for resources for the scout, ping high priority targets for the gunner. Essentially, if you are silent and not really relaying any information to your team, you're not helping in really any way. So make sure your communication with your teammates is as clear and concise as can humanly be. Tip number 4 is to make sure you prioritize your resources. Now, this isn't to say that you should ignore the objective or ignore problematic enemies that are in front of you to go get some nitra or to go get some gold. Obviously, you want to make sure you're dealing with the immediate threat, but especially on Hazard 5, you are going to start burning through your ammo and your resources very quickly. And if you run out of ammo in Hazard 5, you're as good as dead. And that's why you want to make sure resource management is basically a secondary objective for your mission. At any point that there is any downtime at all, you should grab some nitra if you can, because it is going to be incredibly crucial for you later on down the line. Engineers should make sure that they are constantly putting up platforms underneath those hard to reach nitra deposits for their scout to get to. And if you're one of the lowly ground classes like the gunner and the driller, you should make sure that you are getting all of the ground sources. That way, whenever you get to those difficult swarms, you have plenty of ammo to go through it. And make sure you are also pacing your resources effectively when it comes to calling in resupplies. Obviously, for certain mission types, it is okay to just call in a bunch at once, but especially if you're in a mission type where you're going to be constantly moving, you don't want to call everything in one spot, because then it's not really going to be that helpful for you when you have to move eventually. Essentially, just be on the lookout for nitra and make sure you are using your resources effectively throughout the course of the entire mission. And then finally, the last tip I have for you for Haz 5 is to adapt your loadouts effectively. While yes, there are certain builds that are generally very useful, you kind of want to make sure that you are curating your build for whatever mission type you're on. Builds that function very well for single target damage, like on elimination missions, might not necessarily be the best thing for something like, say, an on-site refining or an escort duty mission. While it is good to have specific builds that you really like, you want to make sure that you can tweak them at any point. That way you're playing into the mission type's strengths and weaknesses as best you can. If you're going on an egg hunt mission, you might want to bring very heavy area damage because you're going to get hit with a lot of swarms. If you're doing an industrial sabotage mission or an elimination mission, you might want to bring more single target heavy damage since you're going to be fighting larger boss-like enemies throughout the course of that. You want to make sure that your builds are flexible and effective, but also you want to make sure that you are playing into the strengths of your class and your build depending on what mission type you're on. So if you're using something on a particular mission type and it's not working, you may need to tweak it a little bit. And there you have 5 tips to help you survive a little bit better on Haz 5 if you are trying to get there. And these tips might also be able to help you get beyond Haz 5 into Haz 5 Plus, or again, like I said, even those modded difficulties. But if you're somebody who has been struggling trying to get to Haz 5, these tips should be able to help you out a good bit. And if you guys have any tips for new players trying to reach Haz 5, let me know down in the comments, as I'm sure it'll help out a lot of other players. And as always, I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing and becoming a member as well, as it really helps me out a lot. Rocket Stone Miners, I will see you in the next video.